Hey, can you say hi to our church online this morning? Um, so glad that we get to do that every week and, have church online, that kind of thing. Hey, I need to tell you about a little something that we're doing real quick. If you could all just collectively look at the hub for a minute. Sorry, Kelly. Like, you're standing right in the way of where I'm going to point to, Kelly. Sorry. Like, I need that sign right there. Y'all see that little sign on the wall? Y'all see that? That thing right there that Vanna White is pointing to, right? That is a get well card that we're making for one of our family members that has been on repeat in the hospital. Like, they just can't break away from this. And our care team, we have a care team here. Our care team thought the best way to just show them some love and support would be to send them a big card from the whole family. So I want you to take a moment today and just go over there and just say something. Get well soon, whatever you want to say, whatever the Lord puts on your heart to put on there. We just want to just overwhelm them with acceptance and love and, hey, we're thinking about you, we're praying for you. So if you would take a moment today, head over there and do that, in between you eating a taco and all those kind of things. Can we do that? Can I get more than one person to do that? I appreciate that this morning. So good. I thought it was really kind of funny this morning that I walked in and somebody handed me a Gina's menu. That was hilarious. Instead of bulletins, we got Gina's menu this morning. Gina's is the truck right out here. Anyway, I thought that was funny. Are y'all awake today? I mean, I know fall fell quick, but really? We're starting this new series called Risky Business, and I had to do a double take there because that's not the graphic that we originally had. Originally, Moses had glasses on, so I'm not sure what happened with that, but we're doing this series called Risky Business, and we're going to take a look at the book of Exodus again. We were there back in the month of June, but we're gonna go back here again, and it was really kind of ironic because I had put together my summer series and just put tons of time into it and thought about it. And specifically that series, This Is Only a Test, that we went through in June. And then we got our fall curriculum was released, and they were like, well, we're going to Exodus in the month of October. So I was like, hey, we're going to be on repeat again. So I promise you what we're going to cover this month, it's going to be a different angle and more reputable and connectable. It'll be awesome. But I want to just help you walk into the idea of where do we need to step into risk in our world, in our lives, and specifically where you live and what you do. And so to get you to that spot, we do a lot of stuff as a staff. We look at our staff as a staff family. We just have a lot of fun together. We really make fools of ourselves a lot together. In fact, most of us were at a wedding yesterday for a guy who used to play as part of the United Worship team. And so I'm sitting at this table. They put me at we were just there as guests. I have only been invited to 2 weddings since I've been here. Invited. I officiate all these weddings. And I'm like, you just want me for my officiating abilities. I've only been invited to 2 weddings in the last 2 weeks. These 2 weddings have been. And so I went to this wedding yesterday, and so many of our church were there too. And so they put us at the pastor's table. I wasn't the officiant, but they put us at this pastor's table. I don't know why. It felt a little awkward there. But we got to know this pastor a little bit, and ironically lives right next door to Lawrence and Penny. So we were talking to them a whole lot, and an hour afterwards, all this crew comes in, and they sit right at the table behind us, and this pastor was sitting right next to us. He kind of looked at them, and he's like, man, they're really noisy. I was like, yeah, they're all of my church staff. It was hilarious. But we try to do some things together every once in a while. We've taken a road trip before. That was a lot of fun, our little road trip to Virginia Beach, and we were checking out another church, and we just try to play every once in a while. And so one of the ideas we came up with just recently, Crystal came up with, was let's have a staff event where we go throwing axes. Sound like fun? Yeah. It was so fun. I mean, as much as you can imagine it would be, it was everything. It was all of that. It was so good. It's just like bowling. No, not at all, actually. But no, so we did this, and it's as dangerous as you think it's going to be. And we were the whole time we were leading up to this, we were posting videos about axe throwing horror stories, and just to kind of psych ourselves out. And the idea was, or the angle was, make sure your life insurance is up to speed before you go do this. But I tell you what, we had so much fun throwing axes. And the next day, Monday morning, we all kind of on Slack got together and was like, where are you throwing an axe at today? Like, because you can do this in your own backyard. Let me teach you how. It's so easy. We should do that. I should have done it like right here. Wouldn't that just been awesome? I'm telling you, you can do it with your own axe. Just go try it. It'll be fun. There are times in your world that you have to press out and take risk. I mean, typically for us, we try to do something that surrounds our kids. Let's get our kids involved and let's go have hot dogs somewhere, right? I mean, that's what we do. But we felt like this was a time, man, we needed to risk. We needed to do something dangerous that's nobody else is doing this. It was a lot of fun. That's what this is, risk. I want you to be able to open your mind to where does the Lord want me to step into risk. Ironically, what we're going to cover over the next few weeks is totally opposite of where we've just been. With the life of Joseph, we've been talking about so much of what happens to you and how do you deal with what happens to you that you have no control over. As we walk into the book of Exodus, we're going to start looking at this from a different angle and start looking at it from the fact of it's, irregardless of what happens to you, there are some points and elements of life that you can choose differently and you can control in a different angle and element. And I want you to look into that. Where in your life do you need to manhandle this and control it differently to pursue and to look at a different outcome? So we're going to connect this to where we've just been. In Exodus chapter 1, it starts by talking about like who Joseph was. In just the first few verses, it reintroduces his 12 brothers, and it says that Joseph died. Now, and that's a recap from like the last 5 chapters of Genesis. We see Joseph pass away, and he's directing his people on what to do with his bones or his body in the years to come. And it says that 13, I believe it says, or we find out that 400 years have passed between when Joseph died and where we're at in the book of Exodus. 400 years, 13 generations this is, okay? It's a long time. Can we get the idea this has been a while? Are you with me? We got this. This has been a long time. It specifically says, I'm gonna use a lot of paraphrasing today. In fact, I don't have any verses that are going to be on the screen today. You're just going to have to follow, listen along, and write some stuff down that you might want to look at later. But just for reference sake, I'm going to go there. But it says that all this time has passed away and generations have gone, and they have literally, this king that's in Egypt now, he has forgotten who Joseph was. And I want to, it totally drove me to this passage from Psalm 145, verse number 4, it says that generation after generation stands in awe of your work, and each one tells stories of your mighty acts. And I kind of wonder, like, what happened? Where was the breakdown that happened after Joseph died and after all this God story that happened? Where was the breakdown in generation that stopped telling the God stories that happened before? Because it literally speaks about the fact that this new king rose up who didn't know Joseph, who wasn't connected to his story. In other words, that God story stopped. That's just kind of an astounding truth to me. Like, you need to recognize that what you're walking through in your world right now, what you're walking through in your life, is the ability of a God story. And you need to be able to encapsulate that and pass it to someone else. That's what they're for. These are gifts to you to be able to move on down the line for you. What are you doing with the mighty acts that God does in your world to help someone else or a further generation know of the greatness of God in your life today? Oh, wait. Like we've got to be intentional about these moments. Ironically, I think there's also an element that Joseph didn't see coming. Like we see these things where Joseph was the distributor of all this food in the land of Egypt. Remember this? They had gone through 7 years of famine, and then they were going to have 7 years of plenty, and then the world is going through famine. And did I mess that up? Totally didn't I? It was the good years first and then the bad years. And Joseph was distributing all this food. And it specifically says that the people came to him and they got their daily rations. They bought food from him when they could. When they didn't have any money, they began to sell their whatever they had to be able to get money to buy this food. When they had nothing else to sell, they came to Joseph and they said, listen, you have everything of ours. The only thing that we have left is our land and our bodies. And he said, then I'll take both. Basically, is what he told them. And so they sold their land. It actually says in Exodus chapter, or whatever passage it was, that Pharaoh owned all the land in Egypt. He owned everything. And then it actually says this. I want to read you this verse in whatever passage this was. Totally lost. The whole no verse thing is messing me up. It says that Joseph reduced them to servitude. Let that sink in for just a minute. Like 400 years from now, Joseph's going to be dead, buried, and gone. And where do we see the people of Israel at that moment? They're in slavery. they've been introduced to this concept of slavery. And I kind of wonder, like, did Joseph know that what he was setting up generations down the road would be like the downfall of the people of God? Maybe that's just my opinion. I don't know. But when he said, I'm going to reduce them to slavery, I'm going to make them work for this, did he realize that generations to come, it would be the downfall of the entire people of God? I mean, obviously God was going to use this. It was totally like an oops moment. Like, oh crap, this is not what I intended to have happen. Like, I had one of those moments a while back. In fact, I was thinking about this morning. It wasn't really my oops moment, but something I may have taught my son inadvertently. You know how you teach your kids something and then it comes back to haunt you later? Two things I've seen this happen with me with now. Like, I have prayed for a long time. I believe that you can pray some things into your kids, and for a long time now I've prayed that my son, specifically Austin, would grow up to be a hard-working man. And honestly, right now, I can't get the boy to stop working. He comes home, gets off the bus, and goes and says, like, man, I got to go clean up the yard. I'm like, stop it. Go tear some stuff up. I don't know. Go play. Go ride your bike. No, he's like, no, I got yard work to do. I'm like, that's awesome, but stop it. Years ago, he must not have been 4 years old at the time, maybe 5. We lived at a different house, and I came home, and I found the gas can open on my truck, the door open on my truck, and I'm like, that's weird. And the thing was, the cap was off. And so I put it back together, and I drove, and the thing would not drive for nothing. It was just so bad. And so I asked Austin, I'm like, what happened? What's going on? He's like, oh, I filled your tank up with gas. I'm like, with what? And he said, water. You know how fun that is? Oh, my word, it was terrible. I'm like, somehow I taught this kid this. This is like oh, crap moment. Listen, you want to know how to fix it? Do you? If that ever happens to you, your kids do this. Like, 17 quarts of heat is what you do. All that in your gas tank, and it will take care of your water problem, okay? There you go. That was for free. This all crap moment happens with Joseph and these people, and he doesn't have any idea. This is going to all happen after he's gone. He's dead. But it specifically said that the people of Israel became so numerous that the whole region was full of them. And the Egyptian people take notice of this, and they recognize, and this new Pharaoh who comes into power recognizes, man, if we don't do something, we're in trouble. We've got to encapsulate them. We've got to hold on to them. And I would look at those of you who have multiple children and the fear that you have, that we collectively have as parents with multiple children, and that they realize one day that there's more to them than us. It's a scary reality that happens when they realize, I just terrified of my kids because they could do this today. They could recognize that we're stronger than them than they are, and they could just take us over. But that was the moment that these people were having. There's more of them than us, and if we don't do something right now to control them, they could take us over. They could do anything they want, and so they did. They put them into hardship, and they put them into difficulty, and they were mistreated, and it says that even though the Israelites were mistreated, their families grew larger, and they took over more land, and because of this, the Egyptians hated them even more than before, and it was just a snowball effect, and I kind of want to submit to you this, because we look at these difficult moments, and this is the connection to the series we just went through, because we look at that and we were like, why God, why God would you allow this? And the things that are happening to us, they couldn't do anything about what was happening to them, and they were just forced into this slavery moment. And I need you to understand this, that the God moments that you want to happen in your life will happen when you intermix difficulty with determined faith. When you cross difficulty with determined faith. There's difficult moments in my life, and I really can't do anything about the difficult moments of my life, but I can do something about my determined faith. Can I get a witness? Like, I can do that. I can have faith. I can build my life on a bedrock of something that's stronger than what's happening to me, and that's where I can take some risk. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. My faith is stronger than anything you can say. Like, that's the moment, and that's the thread that we need to live on, and we can build something with that. And so finally it says that this king, this Pharaoh, had enough of this, and he puts out this decree that every boy under 2 years old is supposed to be killed. And he goes to the Hebrew, he calls them Hebrew midwives. So he's going to their own people, and he tells them, listen, when a baby is born, if it's a boy, kill it. Do you think they're going to do this? Of course not. This is ludicrous. It's stupidity. And then they make up some lie. They were like, well, these Hebrew women are very vigorous, and they have birth before we can get there. And oops, I'm sorry, it's just not happening. And totally a lie. And so finally, it says that the king gave a command that everyone in the nation, as soon as a Hebrew boy is born, throw it into the river. Let all the girls live. Can you imagine living in this time frame? Mama, can you imagine living in a season like this? This is the moment that we see Moses, it comes into reality. And it starts in Exodus chapter 2 where, a man and this woman, they had kids. And they had multiple kids. And Moses was a couple into this because he's got an older sister old enough to be able to do things on her own and act on her own and all that. And you see this in Exodus chapter 2. You can read it for yourself. But it says that she had this baby boy, and he was a beautiful child, and she kept him hidden inside for 3 months. And I just kind of wonder, what went through her mind during that 3-month time frame? I mean, the moment that baby boy is born, and knowing that we are going to go against the demand of culture. We're going to go against culture. What goes through her mind? I mean, was this even a choice? Was there anything that went through her mind? Does he live or does he die? Mama, come on, answer it for me. Is there any choice in her mind? No, this boy's got to live. We've got to do whatever it takes. This is worth the risk, right? But every night's sleep, when the world is quiet, except for this baby boy, I mean, what goes through her mind in that moment? When she wonders, when she stresses out, when family stresses out, are we going to be found out? With every knock at the door, when people actually went and knocked on doors. Is this going to be them? Are they looking? Are they searching? Are they looking for baby boys? Because we've got one. I guess I got to look at the other side of it, and you have to assume that there would have been those people who would have given in to the demands of culture and given up their baby boys. Can you put yourself there for a minute, even though it's painful? Can you think through what it would have been like to be able to have wrestled with the idea and have succumbed to the reality that I have to give in to the demands of culture? I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine the heartache and the pain that would have come with a decision like that. It says, so 3 months of fear. And it says in verse number 3, it says, when she could no longer keep him hidden, she made a basket out of reeds, covered it with tar. She put the basket in the tall grass in the river. I love this part because I told you guys at the beginning of the year that my word for the year. How many of you are word for the year people? You choose one word and that's your word for the year. Anybody? A couple, 1, 2, maybe 3. I don't know. My word for the year was intentional, and I believe that that's where I'm at. I think that you just intentionally. We're going to plan through life. I don't like to be reactionary to life. I like to see it coming. I like to plan for it. I love what she did with this. I can hope that my boy will never be found out. I can hope. We do a lot of hoping in life and not and just reacting to what comes. But she was hoping for 3 months that we'd never be found out. And then after 3 months, she became very intentional and said, you know what? The chances of him being found are great, and so I'm going to intentionally do something to protect him. We got to take a risk. I've got to risk going against what everybody else says and what everybody else does. I've got to manhandle this. I've got to become intentional with the way my life is going. She could hope that he could live for the rest of his life, or she could intentionally plan that maybe he might have life somewhere. It might not be with her, but somewhere this baby boy could live. I got to ask you this morning, where should you today be taking some risk? Be intentionally looking at your life and saying, I'm hoping that thing, whatever that is, doesn't happen or it does happen, when in all actuality, you could intentionally be planning for it to come to play. Does it make sense? You can make some life happen in your world if you just get really intentional about it and super creative. I mean, this girl is super creative about the protection and livelihood of her baby boy. And so what do? They put him in this basket, they launch him out into the river, and sister walks along the river watching this basket go and float down to the king's palace, and the king, the king's daughter's there doing whatever she does. And she finds this, she sees it, she even says, this must be one of those Hebrew children. She had to know the law too, this boy should be dead. And instead, she adopts him as her own, puts him in her house, and then, here's sister watching from the side of the river saying, oh, do you need somebody to take care of him? Because I know somebody. And mama gets paid for this for a while. Like, this is the first situation of foster care in the Bible, right? This is awesome. With her own kid. This is so ironic. I mean, how else does the God work? This is just amazing. I love it. I need to ask you this, like, where are you restricting that you ought to be risking? When we talked about this as a creative team like months ago, back in July, we started talking about this idea of risk, and you could just see like the pushback at the table. Collectively, we are not a people that like risk. We like safety, don't we? We like security. We like the idea of margin and space and comfort. And if I have margin, then life is good for a season. I can control that season. And as soon as that season's over, I don't know what's going to come next, but I've got margin, I've got space. What if the Lord is coming to you today saying, hey, I want you to risk it. I want you to put it on the line. You know what the element of this is? It's an element of complete trust. Where is your trust? Is your trust in what you have and in what you control, or is it in the hands of a Father who controls all of it? Does that make sense? Where are you restricting that the Lord is saying, I want you to trust me with that and put it on the line? I mean, good Lord, this guy Moses was a testament of this in his whole life. Because of that, like, naturally my mind just constantly thinks towards children because we have so many of them, right? Isn't the safest place? Stop agreeing with me, dude. There's too many head nods there, okay? One's good. Isn't the safest and most secure place that you and I want to be is in the future of our children? Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, what lengths would you go to, mom and dad, to make sure that your kid's future is safe? I can't tell you how many times I've heard, I've said, I've thought about the reality that the Lord loves them more than I ever will. All of mine. I mean, there's moments during our day and during our life that we react and respond to our kids that we have to later go back and confess and ask forgiveness. How many of you have had that moment this week? Thank you. Glad I'm not the only one. And we're just constantly reminded that they're His before they're ours. Psalm 127 says this, that children are a blessing and a gift from the Lord. I mean, sometimes. Children are a blessing and a gift from the Lord. I feel like something's missing from that. And then he goes on to say this, having a lot of children to take care of you in your old age is like a warrior with a lot of arrows. The more you have, the better off you'll be. Like, some of you need to get busy here. Because it will protect you when your enemies attack with arguments, he says. But I love the nature of this verse. I mean, he equates it to a hunter, a bow and arrow. I mean, what do you do with an arrow but you launch it? You send it out. You do something dangerous with it. Honestly, I think the cultural demands of us as parents today is totally flawed because it's all about us keeping and protecting our children when the Lord is saying, can you just trust me with them? Because I got big plans for their world. I've got big plans for their lives. Have you seen today, one of the most heartbreaking things I see in our culture today is the demand of compromise when it comes to our culture. They so badly want you to cripple. They don't want you to have a strong faith. Do you see that? Do you see it like I see it? It's like glamorized all over media today when faith crumbles. They detest the fact that we have something that's bigger and stronger than culture. They detest it. You know, the worst part about it is that you see these people who stand on the side of culture and they glamorize the downfall of people like us who have faith until culture looks at them and eats them for lunch. Nobody is safe in this game. Nobody is. The only way that you get through this is by having something that's larger and bigger and stronger than anything else, and that's called Jesus. That's where we need to be anchored. That's where we need to be found secure and safe, and that's where our risk needs to be found and take place, is in who Christ is rather than anything else. I can't finish this for you. This really has to be something that you do for yourself. I just kind of wonder today, where are you restricting that you should be risking? Where is the Lord leading you and teaching you and telling you and encouraging you that to you it looks too dangerous, it looks too hard, it looks too risky? That you need to step into, and you need to trust, and you need to experience the goodness and the favor of God that's found through risk. God, I want to pray over this church today. Lord, I believe that this church is an incredibly dangerous force. It's scary dangerous. When we get to a spot where we can take on the attitude that Moses' mom took and say, man, it's not good enough of what culture demands. What's good is that I trust and believe in this God who gave me this baby boy. Lord, show us, Lord, where we need to risk. Show us where it's appropriate, God. And show us where you want us to work and to walk because of the greatness of who you are and because of the story that you want to weave with us and through us. In Jesus' name.